So that's what we're really going to focus on today. So I'm going to go on and get started. Um, Understanding anxiety. So there is a difference between fear and stress and anxiety, but all of those things have at the core their similarity, the part of the brain that they come out of. The part of the brain is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is that part of our brain that is responsible for things like fight, flight, or freeze. If you've heard, we hear a lot about fight or flight. More research has shown that it's really not just fight or flight, it's fight, flight, or freeze. So that's the part of our brain that deals with that. If we think about anxiety in particular, anxiety is kind of its own beast because it is pretty long acting. Anxiety isn't like I have this fear in the moment, and it's not like I am stressed out about this particular thing that's going on. It's bigger than that. It's broader. And it is something that does create a lot of tension, a lot of physiological responses. And so we're going to talk a bit about that in addition to kind of just stress as a whole. So I'm going to throw out a question to the crowd. For those of you who are in Zoom land, I've got somebody monitoring the chat. So if you want to respond to anything via chat, and he will be glad to throw your thoughts out there and make sure that you're represented in the conversation as well. So I'm going to start out with a question to you about what does anxiety look like for you? But I'm going to give you a moment to kind of ponder that and to be prepared if you want to share. And I'll share just for a moment about what it looks like for me. So anxiety for me looks like oftentimes consistent worry about things over which I have no control or little control.
Donald Trump.
Well, politics. Yes, in the world today, politics are giving a lot of us some anxiety on a different spectrum. I'm a mom, so I have some mom-related anxiety. We have over the last year, we've had changing leadership here at the college. So new bosses sometimes give us anxiety. Starting something new, being part of a major life change can be the cause of a lot of anxiety as well. And so as you're coming into college, that is certainly one of those pressure points where we tend to feel a lot of that. So I'll throw it out to you guys. What does anxiety look like for you, if you don't mind sharing? And if you're not comfortable, that's okay too.
Well, right now I have possibility of being evicted from my place.
Okay.
Plus my water might disconnect if I don't pay it soon.
Okay. So those are big life anxieties. When I give you my card, I'll also want to get you connected with some other resources to see if we can find some support for you with that. Yeah.
I have test taking anxiety. So I will study for hours and hours, but as soon as I get in front of that paper or up the line, I get overwhelmed with anxiety. Even though I know I'm prepared, I can't shake that feeling.
So we are going to talk a little bit today about test anxiety because that is a big one. And I personally have had that experience. So I can very much identify with that. I might, if we have time, I may share a little bit about that as well.
First step anxiety, taking like first step towards anything, like that being like studying for like my driver's test or something like that. That is always been something that I've struggled with.
Yeah. That's a great way to define it, first step anxiety, because that first step oftentimes is the hardest step in the pathway. So thank you for sharing.
Always thinking that something terrible is gonna happen.
Okay. Catastrophizing in your head. Yep. Do you want
People online.
to, we got some online feedback?
I'm seeing if Tatiana would like to unmute, but she was talking about being a mom of 2 girls, expecting a set of twins,
Ooh.
first time going back to school since 2007.
Well, welcome back, Tatiana. You did a brave thing in taking the first step and applying. So
That was Julie. That wasn't me.
I was Julie, sorry, I got
It's
you two
okay.
mixed up.
Yes,
Julie is a mom of 2 expecting twins.
Yes.
And Tatiana, since you're unmuted, feel free to share.
I was just saying that this is my first time in school since I graduated high school back in 2018. And I'm also transitioning from active duty to being a student in reserves. So that's something that I, worry about. Learning things in the military is really fast paced and, opposed to going to school and actually having to learn the concept rather than just memorizing it to put it on paper.
that's those are some really great thoughts. Well, thank you for your service. And with some of our other students who service members, that transition from super structured life, structured civilian and student life is a big change and a big source of anxiety as well. So thank you for sharing. Thank you. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more as we go, but just to talk a little bit about kind of physically what stress and does to our bodies. So I mentioned the amygdala. That's like the fear center of our brain. And that's really important because it plays an important role in keeping us alive, right? If you think back to the olden days of the cave person, the cave person had a different set of stressors in their life than we do today. So in that time frame, a lot of the stressors were related to staying alive, having enough food, being able to hunt or find the food, and not being the prey of some other animal. So that's super, those are both like huge life things, both big sources of stress. Over time, our lives look quite different than the average cave person's life. And so our stressors look different. And one of the challenges though, is that our brain hasn't necessarily adapted so well with that amygdala. And so sometimes what our brain does is it says there are a lot of things that are going to stress me out and kick me into this fight, flight, or freeze paradigm. And that could be a tiger getting ready to eat me. It could be a car accident that is getting ready to happen, or it can be a professor putting a test in front of us. And our brain doesn't always do the best job of being like, oh, wait, I should respond to this test in a very different way than I would respond to an oncoming car coming at me. So that's kind of that initial response. That amygdala goes crazy. It dumps a bunch of hormones into us. That's what kind of makes you jittery. It might make you nauseous. People will say like all of a sudden, like when digestion halts, they get the feeling of butterflies or they get a nauseous feeling. Sometimes it looks like wearing our shoulders like earrings. You know, this kind of stress. I hold a lot of the stress personally. And it can also impact us just in terms of like hyper alertness, sometimes to the point of like not quite paranoia, but on the cusp of it, just jumpy and jittery and really unsettled. So What our body does is this initial thing happens. We release all of these hormones. Our body goes into survival mode. What do I need to do to survive this stressor that's coming at me in the moment? Once we push through that, the hormones start to dissipate. Then we go into a secondary response. That's where we can sometimes take a moment and process. Like, I narrowly avoided that accident. I had that adrenaline rush. I'm holding onto the steering wheel, but I'm still kind of shaking. But I can take a moment and I can breathe and I can think, thank God I was being a defensive driver and I saw that person coming and I was able to adapt and I'm going to be okay, but I might need to pull over in this parking lot and just take a minute to breathe. That's kind of our secondary response. And then what can happen is a tertiary response that results in some kind of trauma. So I'll take the car accident example. This has probably happened to all of us where we've narrowly averted disaster in a car at some point in time, right? That's happened to most of us. And most of us are able to pull over into the parking lot and take a minute and breathe and be grateful we're alive and, get it together and leave. But most of us haven't almost died in a car accident before. And the person who has trauma associated with that. And then narrowly averting another car accident results in an entirely different response in that it might trigger that old trauma. And so that's something to be aware of. And that's why we want to really think about how we handle stress, because the better we handle stress and anxiety, the more likely we are to avert that trauma down the line. So there are a lot of repercussions to holding on to stress. There are a lot more than what I have here. But some of the big ones is we know that there is the higher your stress level, and if you have an anxiety disorder, it does increase your risk of depression. Stress actually over time changes your brain structure, not what hormones you produce and what hormones you release, but how much. So the amygdala is kind of a tiny little part of our brain. The more trauma we have and the more stress we're exposed to, the more our amygdala grows, the bigger it gets. The bigger our fear center is in the brain, the more overactive it gets and the more hormones and stuff it dumps into us. So it's kind of a nasty cycle. And so learning how to deal with stress early, learning how to avoid some of the panicky release of those hormones actually can help shrink your amygdala and it reverses the cycle. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the things that we can do, skills we can take advantage of, and resources we can take advantage of to help us deal with that. Because as much as possible, we want our brain health to be good, and we want our brain health to lead to good body health as well. So, before we get into that, take a minute and just, I'll ask you to share with me a little bit about what your self-care looks like. Again, feel free to share if you want to. Don't feel pressured to share if you're not comfortable with it. And what I want to ask you to do is I want to ask you to dig a little bit deeper than what we stereotype self-care as, right? How many times, and this may be different, this may be a gendered thing. I don't know how often it happens to men, but I can guarantee for some of us women, we've had a lot of stress and somebody's been like, just go take a nice bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. a fair amount. And I'm sure that's really nice. It's not all that impactful in life as a whole. So think about kind of some of the bigger things. Like if you've sort of changed something about life to do self-care better. Share some of those things with me. Journaling. That's really great. Get those thoughts out of the head and onto paper.
Does anything like that show up on a brain scan, on an MRI kind of thing?
The amygdala piece? Yes, that's how we know that.
I recently had an MRI, no, not recently, but they didn't find anything. So I mean, I'm taking the antidepressants, anti-anxiety, and insomnia medication.
Okay. And that's one of the things that like a doctor may not say, hey, your amygdala is overinflated. You need to work a little bit on that. Where we first learned about this is in looking at the brains of children. And if you look at the brains of children that have been neglected, the brains of children that have been abused, and the brains of children that have had fairly stable, healthy-ish childhoods, their brain functions and their brain structures look different. There's something called trauma-informed care. If you ever have the opportunity to sit in on a training, we do them for free sometimes for students. It's training about the science of how trauma impacts our bodies and the science of how generational trauma actually gets passed down in DNA. It's really fascinating work. So keep an eye out for that if you kind of want to, if that's interesting to you. It is very science heavy, very informative, very certainly helped me understand myself better and helped me understand a lot of the humans in my life better. So I would recommend that.
What's it called?
It's called trauma-informed care. It's kind of geared at like employees, but that's actually a pretty small part of it. A big part of it is like, the biggest part is understanding the drivers behind human behavior. So it's very interesting. I do recommend it. Any other thoughts about how people take care of themselves? Do we have anything from Zoom?
Nothing in the chat, unless anybody, hold on. Grayson said playing video games, playing with his cat, listening to music, and exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, going on walks definitely helps.
Do what?
Going on walks definitely helps.
Going on walks, exercise, those are huge.
I was gonna say taking a walk.
Taking a walk. Okay, so there is a lot of research that shows that just the act of going outside helps with dopamine release in your brain. So you don't even have to walk outside. You can go sit on a bench. And just the act of going outside helps. Walking is the additional booster to that, or exercising. I heard music in there. Music is big for a lot of people. That auditory connection to better times in our life. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That's big for a lot of people. You mentioned journaling before. That concept of journaling, of getting thoughts out of your head and into some other mode, can help release those thoughts. Other things would be like things like yoga and meditation. I mean, yoga has like meditative qualities to it, but meditation on its own can make a difference as well. And there are other things too that you wouldn't necessarily think of, like cooking,
Drawing.
Cooking things from like that you associate with good times. In my house, it's cookies. That's always any kind, snickerdoodles, chocolate chip, peanut butter. Yeah, we're hardcore. with our cookie life. All right. So, we're gonna practice a couple of these skills. And before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the right times to use some of these practices. So, we're going to do some breathing exercises. We're going to do some visualization exercises. And these can really help anytime you are going into something that you know is going to be stressful. So your example of like the first step in something. If you know, hey, I gotta get it together and I gotta take this step, might be a good time to maybe just take 5 minutes and practice an exercise. Test taking. This is pretty big. I think I do have time. So I was a really good college student, like super duper graduated at the top of my class, nerdy college student, right? And I always studied and I worked really hard and I did all of my homework, but college was not hard for me. As long as I did the work, I understood it. And then I went to graduate school. And in graduate school, I had to take statistics for the first time. And it was a graduate level econometrics statistics class taught by a brand new first time teacher. And it was awful. So, first time in my life that I really understood what it was to sit in a classroom and to go to tutoring sessions and to read the stupid book and do all the homework and study and study and study and still not have the slightest idea what in the heck I was supposed to be learning. And time came, so this was a class that had 2 tests and some homework, but most of your grade was built on 2 tests. And test number 1 came, midterms. Time to go in and take my test. And I went to every tutoring session and I studied and I practiced working out problems and I knew I was in trouble before I ever entered the room. And I went into the room that day and she put down the test in front of me and the test had 2 questions on it, one on one page, one on the other page. And you had to work through these like super long questions. And so I looked at that first one and I thought, I don't even know what this is asking me. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to use my test taking strategies. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to work on the second one because surely I'll at least know how to get started on it. And my brain can kind of figure out what on earth to do with question number 1. I looked at question number 2 and I was like, well, okay, I at least know how to get started. And I got started and I didn't get very far before I was like, well, now I have no idea what the heck to do. So maybe I remember that first one. I went back to that first one and I still didn't know anything. And I went back, I sat there flipping the page back and forth and back and forth. And then I'm crying in the classroom. As I've got the test in front of me, like teardrops are going onto the test. And so then I was like, I gotta get out of here. So maybe if I like take a break. So the teacher, thankfully, was like, please take your crying rear out of my class and pull it together. And so I went out to the bathroom and I sat in the bathroom and I cried for a little bit longer. And then I was like, I gotta go back in there and face that test. But it was just done. I was done. I knew nothing. I could not, all the pieces would not click. And it was the most miserable, terrifying, uncomfortable, embarrassing thing on earth. And it was the start. That was my first dance with test anxiety, but it was not my last. It was the start of a new problem in my life. And so I had to learn some things to kind of, or I didn't necessarily, there were things I already knew. I had to bring them back and implement them in my life. So that's what I'm gonna work with you on today, is teaching you 2 things that kind of worked for me. Now, these strategies I originally learned when I worked in a program for individuals that were recovering from domestic violence and sexual assault. So that's that's a group of people that have experienced a lot of trauma and need strategies to figure out how to work through that, how to deal with their anxiety. And so I always thought if these exercises could make a difference in the lives of people who've gone through such traumatic things, then certainly it can help me with my test anxiety experience in this instance. And so that's one of the things that I started to incorporate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first we're going to do a breathing exercise together. And then I'm actually going to cut out the overhead lights just so that it's a little bit darker in here. And we're going to do a visualization exercise. So for the breathing exercise, these chairs are kind of hard. So if you want to stand for this, you can feel free to. If not, what you want to try to do is like get yourself seated in that chair where you've got really good posture. So normally I say kind of slide to the edge of the chair so that you're not relying on the back of it. And you want to sit up. You want to kind of straighten your back out. And first thing we're going to do, I mentioned a lot of us sometimes wear our shoulders as earrings. And so the first thing we're going to do is just kind of work those shoulders around a little bit. And then we're going to make our shoulders earrings and drop them. Earrings and drop. And one more time. All right. And then we might want to just try to touch our shoulder blades together for a minute. That can help too. Okay. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a minute and we're going to breathe. And when we normally breathe, we're using about the top third of our lungs. We're lazy breathers. We don't use all of our lungs for day-to-day stuff. And so we get like some carbon monoxide and, toxins, carbon dioxide and toxins built up in that lower part of our lungs. So we're going to just take a minute and we're going to let go of those. So what I want you to do is I want you to put your hand on your stomach. You're going to sit up straight, hand on stomach, and I want you to breathe in through your mouth and then out through your mouth slowly. And you want to feel like you're inflating your stomach. And then when you breathe out, it drops back. It's called belly breathing. So you want to breathe so deeply that you're inflating your stomach. Sometimes it helps to breathe in on a little bit of a count in your head. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out on that count. I want you to do this about 3 or 4 times, no more than that, because we don't want fainting to happen. So take a minute and just breathe in and out. In and out. In and out. So just that one breathing exercise increases the oxygenation in your blood flow. You're actually breathing out toxins, you're breathing in more healthy air, and your brain is getting more oxygenated blood. So it helps to kind of clear up your brain and your thinking. It also, if you practice those exercises on a regular basis, lowers your blood pressure, in particular your lower number in your blood pressure, which is the hardest one to move. So breathing exercises have been long associated with blood pressure issues, which is highly associated with stress. So that's the one breathing exercise. The next one we're going to do is a visualization exercise. This is my go-to because it relies on the 5 senses. Earlier, I think it was Grayson online who said listening to music is a good form of self-care. And I said something about how that we attach music to good times in life, to memories of the past. We actually attach all of our senses to memories of the past. And so with this visualization exercise, we're actually going to take a past memory. I want you to just kind of brainstorm a time in your life that you have felt at peace, comfortable, safe, without stress or with as little stress as you've been able to achieve in your life. And we're going to walk through your memory of that place in your head. It does need to be a place that you have been. It does need to be an actual memory, not like Aruba looks like the least stressful place on earth to me. I've never been there, so it won't be my place. But my grandma's couch might be, or my spot in the woods by the creek at my parents' house might be, or the ocean might be. It might, for you, it might be on the back of a horse. Like, you know, think about like where you've had a moment where you just felt at peace. And I'm going to walk you through a visualization for that. And periodically, I'm going to ask you to take a good deep breath in and out. You're going to want to do one of those belly breaths, in through your mouth, out through your mouth. And so we'll just kind of remind you along the way. Now, I'm going to cut out the lights. That's a weird backward light. And I'm going to ask you if you're comfortable to close your eyes. If you're not, just look down into your lap. And we're going to go through this together. So take a minute and close your eyes and just think for a minute about what you remember about this moment in your life. Try to think back and remember the details about what this space was like and how your body felt in this space. And while you're thinking and remembering, I want you to, in your mind's eye, look around and take in the details of everything you can see in this space. Look around at the colors, the textures. Are you alone or do you see other people? Are things still or is there movement? In your mind's eye, just turn and take a 360-degree look all around and take in every detail, every nuance of being in this space. And while you're looking and remembering, take a good deep breath and release. And now take a moment and listen. Listen to the sounds and remember what you've heard in this space. Is it quiet and still? Do you hear music, voices, the sounds of nature? Just remember and listen and be reminded of what it feels like to be in this place. Take a good deep breath in and release. Now take a minute and think about what it smells like in this place. Does it have a unique smell? Does it smell like food? Does it smell like the forest or the ocean? Does it smell like flowers? While you're remembering what it smells like to be in this place, just look around again. Remember what it looks like. Listen to the sounds. Remember how it smells. And just gently bring your attention to your body. And as I ask you to take another breath, if there's a place in your body that you're feeling tense, just breathe in and release that tension as you're breathing out. One more time. And now think about taste. When you were in this place, were you eating? Were you drinking? Were you chewing gum? Did the taste you associate with this place remind you of salty and savory food or sweets? Is it cold or is it hot? Remember what this food tastes like, what it smells like, what it looks like. Just take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And think about your body one more time. What does your body feel like in this place? Are you sitting, standing, laying down? What are you touching? Are you warm? Do you feel a breeze? Just remember how your body feels calm and peaceful. There's no stress here, there's no tension. One more time, take a moment to look around, to listen, to smell and taste, and feel your body at peace. Take a couple of deep breaths, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring yourself back into this room. Okay. So, how did that feel? Anybody feel comfortable sharing? I'll ask this. Does anybody feel more relaxed than you did when we started? That's a goal. Was it hard for you to stay in the moment and stay in that place? Stay engaged? For anybody? Sometimes it's hard for me. Sometimes I start it and I'm like, oh, this is not the place I want to be in for this today. I'm not in the beach place. I need to maybe try out my Nana's house. Sometimes the distractions make it a little bit difficult. One of the reasons that I like this exercise is that it does tie in to our senses. And our senses are how our brain stores our memories. So, did anybody here play with Play-Doh when they were a kid? If you popped a thing of Play-Doh anytime recently, been around a niece, nephew, child, popped a thing of Play-Doh, gotten a good sniff of it, and been taken back to being 7 years old again? That one's a big one for me. Opening a new box of crayons, very similar response. So that's how our brain locks in our memories. It attaches them to our senses, to how we experienced it. So there are thousands of different visualizations and meditations you can do. Sometimes I like guided ones, like what I did for you. I find them online. Other times I'm able to kind of walk myself through them. This is one of the ones that is easiest to walk myself through because I think five senses. I can go through those on my own. I don't need to be guided through that. I'm gonna kind of like that going. Do we have any comments from online?
Not at the moment, other than Julie said that she.
Okay. Good to hear, Julie. Julie's got all those babies, right? Julie needs to feel more relaxed. So I'm glad that works for her. Okay. So, all right, before we move on, anybody want to share anything about this exercise or anything about exercises that have worked well for you in the past that you would feel comfortable sharing?
It's kind of similar to the visual exercise, except you're actually looking around your actual surroundings. You find like, I don't remember the exact word, but like five things you see, four things you feel, three things you smell, two things you hear, and like one thing you taste or something.
Yes. Yep, that's a good one. I've definitely heard a lot of people who try techniques like that to head off panic attacks. If you've ever experienced panic, that kind of grounding exercise is a good one for that. Any other?
I like to listen to music and sing to songs that I know, because I have musicians in my family.
Yeah,
So I sit at home and all my neighbors will hear me.
okay,
I got a pretty nice voice.
good. So that's that auditory,
Yeah.
that piece that comes with those auditory sensations. There's another exercise that I will do sometimes, particularly when I'm feeling a little like, like everything's tightened up, and it's a tense and release exercise. So you lay on your bed in starfish or dead man's pose, whatever you want to call it, like this on your back, and you start at your toes and you squinch your toes up as much as you possibly can for like 3 seconds and release. And then your feet, and then your ankles and your calves, and you work your way up to your neck. Then you go to your fingertips and up your arms, and you end with your face, and you go something like this and scrunch your face up as much as possible and release. That's a good one as well. Okay, so as students here at the college, one of the resources that we make available to you is called Timely Care. Timely Care is our 24-hour, 7 days a week virtual wellness and mental health program. And you actually have access to free mental health services through Timely Care. So we'll go to that one in a minute. The college actually pays for every student to have up to 3 free scheduled counseling visits per year with Timely Care. But in addition to that, they offer a service called Talk Now. And Talk Now is kind of like what we think of as a hotline, but it's offered via a telephone or video platform. And all of the people that staff their Talk Now are licensed professionals. Where if you just called like your average national hotline, you're much more likely to talk to a trained volunteer than you are to a licensed clinician. So it's sort of like a hotline, but upgraded from that. They also have a lot of self-care options via Timely Care. And so we're actually going to go and explore a couple of these. Oh, come on. Okay. This is the hard way. Okay, so, the way you will access Timely Care, two ways you can access it. One of them is by logging into your MyLaurelRidge account. Once you get into your MyLaurelRidge account, you see all the tiles, one for SIS, one for Navigate. You've probably already used those. This is just another tile in there called Timely Care. Alternatively, you can download the Timely Care app on your phone and just log in using your MyLaurelRidge credentials. Either way is fine. So when you get into Timely Care, you can see your first time you'll have to answer a quick questionnaire. I had to answer it to set my account up. It maybe took me 2 minutes, and that's probably an exaggeration for how long it took me. And when you get into Timely Care, it's where you can find a provider. So the provider care here, if we go to that, I'm in the United States and I'm in Virginia, and I want to choose a counselor. When I would do this, I would go through and do just a quick profile for myself. And the next step after this would be for me to see a list of providers. And I can sort on those providers. I can be like, hey, I need somebody like 8 hours from now. I don't want to wait. And I can sort by first available, or I can go in and search a portal where they have all of their providers and their provider specialties. So if I wanted a provider that had a specialty in working with people who have autism spectrum disorder, I can find that. If I want to find a provider who is female, because maybe I don't feel so great sharing all my stuff with a male provider, I can do that. If I want to find a provider that has had similar life experience to me, whether that is similar race or ethnicity, whether that is similar gender identity, whether that is sexual orientation, if the provider has shared that information, you can search on that information. And so you can try to find a provider that you feel like you would automatically have some connection with. And that is, like I said, not all of the providers share all of those things, but some of them do. And Timely Care is super intentional about hiring providers that represent a lot of different facets of society. So there's a good chance you can find somebody that you feel like is a good fit if that's how you wanted to look. The other thing I wanted to share was a little bit about self-care. And so self-care has these journeys available. And so these journeys are different collections of resources that you can kind of go through to work on a problem or a skill set, something that you want to grow in. So if you take a look at these topics, there are things like self-care for loss, time management skills, journey to bouncing back. I love this one, especially for students that maybe started college years ago and it just didn't work out for them, and now they're coming back for the next time around. That can be a little nerve-wracking. So something like that is helpful. There's self-care for anxiety. There's a stress management one. And so if I just go on to, I'm going to go on to bouncing back. Bouncing back is a pretty short journey, and it's got all of these little components, and they're broken into bite-sized pieces for you. So you don't have to, it's not like you're going to read a book about resilience and bouncing back or listen to an hour podcast. These are just little kind of bite-sized doses. So if I wanted to watch a quick video on...
As a college student, you're going to run into challenges, and sometimes it'll feel like an uphill battle
So I might want to watch this video on resilience and kind of getting a baseline for understanding everything else I do. This video is 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So it's pretty bite-sized. There's some other checklists. There are skills that you would perhaps want to practice. Got to get rid of all this junk over here. Okay, so there are like, I can learn about the 6 factors that affect resilience, how to mentally work out. So some of these things are like learning about the topic, and some of them are practicing a skill within the topic, but they're all less than 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is an extreme based upon what I've seen in this so far. So that's kind of a nice little curated way to deal with concerns or issues. If we go back to self-care, they have this discover section. And so the discover has a little bit of everything. Like I thought it was interesting, they have this antibiotics explained thing. So, you know, just kind of random topics that come up. These episodes are from their podcast. That's super popular thing on their site right now. And then they have yoga classes that you can do. They have meditations. All of these things are free and at your fingertips. So you can take advantage of those. And then the last thing is they do have a community. So their community is kind of like a peer place for peer support. This is, so Timely Care is a service that is provided to colleges. So their clientele is college students. And that's who is in this community, is college students. It is human and AI monitored to avoid people that say harmful things and make sure that those get pulled off and those individuals are blocked as needed. But this is another way that students might want to reach out and seek support. So I wanted to share that with you because that is an important resource that we are offering to students. And here, okay, I'm just a pop-up. There we go. Thank you. All right. And so the last slide, I shared with you what we make available to you for free, which I think is great because it is free. You don't have to deal with ads. You don't have to download a bunch of stuff. It's easy to access. And there is live support via Talk Now and counseling. Currently, we have psychiatry available, but our contract for that ends in December and we're not renewing it. So if psychiatry is interesting to you, get your appointments in now while you have access to it, because that is a service that will be going away. There are some other apps, maybe you use these, maybe you've seen commercials or you've heard of them. I don't have access to Timely Care in the same way that you do. That's just my demo site. I use Insight Timer. I have it on my phone. And so sometimes if I use it all the time. I travel for work. Sometimes hotels are not easy for me to sleep in all of the time. Those do cause a little anxiety. So I pretty much always listen to something in my app that there's a whole section on sleep. And so I'll find something in that and it will help me to kind of gear down and be able to get to sleep. But there are a bunch of these that are out there. Most of them have some free components. Insight Timer has a lot of free components, but it does also have subscription only components. I'm just old and cheap and don't like subscription life. So I don't pay for those. I just go free. But all of these things are available. And so kind of my concluding thought before I give you the chance to ask questions or to share is figuring these things out is never a one size fits all. I've shared some things that work for me or that I've seen work for other people, but it's not one size fits all. The important thing is you kind of go through this process of figuring out what are the strategies that do work well for me and how am I best served by planning when to use them. Any of these things can be great strategies, but if you don't practice them regularly, they're clunky. So like my relaxation thing, if I don't practice it regularly, it is harder for me to do it. So the more I practice, the easier it is for me to just fall into that routine. So that would be my guidance to you is take some time, do some exploration, figure out what tools and strategies work for you, and then get yourself on a schedule of practicing them so that you can easily use them when you're in the situation, like you're sitting at the desk and the professor puts the test in front of you. Or better yet, that morning when you get out of bed, and then in the car before you enter the building, and then in the bathroom before you enter the classroom, and then when the test gets in front of you. That kind of strategy can really make a difference for you. So that is the end of my presentation, but I do want to give you the time to share any of your own final thoughts or ask any questions that you might have.
So where do we find that timely care?
So you'll find the Timely Care app when you log into your MyLaurelRidge account and you see all the little squares that are different options. Timely Care is one of those.
Is it SIS?
It's not SIS, but it is a box near SIS. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for coming out today. Hopefully you learned, you found a nugget that you can take away, if not more. And again, my name is Amber. I'm the Dean of Students here. My office is in this building. It's right across from the financial aid office at Middletown. And at Fauquier, I work in the student services office upstairs in Walk Hall. So if you need to find me in any of those places, you are always welcome to pop your head in, and I would be more than happy to chat with you and to assist you in any way I can. So thanks for coming out today. Thanks for jumping online today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks for coming out there. Okay,
What's up?
Later.
coming out there.
Nice to meet you.
Benjamin.
Sir.
Thanks for coming out today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you tonight.